Hello everyone, Marcos Colón here with SC Magazine, and I'm with Mr. Charles Henderson, who's the director of SpiderLabs, which is the elite security services team within Trustwave. Charles, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So off camera we're talking a little bit about these small to medium-sized businesses. A lot of them are looking for growth, so they're looking for services in terms of HR, marketing, outside. So they're looking at third parties, but a lot of times it does create risks in terms of their crown jewel, their data. So what are you seeing out there in terms of that?
Well, one of the things that's interesting, and increasingly in sort of a global economy that we have, we in an effort to scale, try and outsource as much as possible within our organization that's outside of our core business. Things like HR, marketing, even things like IT for a lot of organizations. The concept of outsourcing can greatly enhance the bottom line for business. The problem is that the people you're outsourcing to don't necessarily share your business goals. That can be a lot of things, but chiefly, as far as we're concerned, it's security. And increasingly what we see is that third-party firms maybe don't have the same care and feeding for security that, say, your average company would have. And in many cases, it's very dangerous because they actually have the most critical data. In the case of, say, an HR firm, they might have background checks, social security numbers, payroll data for all the employees in the company, and even people that used to work at the company or were perhaps applied for a job in the company. And it's really a treasure trove of information. And if you can think about this in sort of a scale term, many of these third-party firms don't just have one client, they have many clients. And so they have more data than, say, an average SMB or even an average enterprise would have. And so it becomes a very juicy target for attackers, especially considering that these third parties don't have any skin in the game when it comes to security. So the threat of, say, a compromise is less of a threat to their employees, it's a threat to their customers' employees.
Now, what would you advise an owner of a small, medium-sized business when they're essentially trying to work with a third party? What questions should they be asking? I know you mentioned penetration testing is a really important part of the auditing process before they actually sign that contract to bring them aboard and help them with their business.
Absolutely. Questions is a great thing. You ask, how do you address security? What kind of measures do you take? That's a great start. But at the end of the day, all you're getting is words there. It's important to back up those words with some sort of proof. Ask for penetration testing reports. Work into your contracts the ability for you to conduct testing. I consider it sort of advantageous when I'm dealing with a third party if they already have language in their contract that allows me to test their offering. Because I see that as a sign of a commitment to security, sort of a notion that they don't have anything to hide. Certainly, there are some SMBs that maybe can't afford to conduct penetration testing against their third parties, though. And so there, it's important to ask for reports, ask for proof that they've conducted penetration testing. Even if it's some sort of redacted report or only an executive summary, something to show that there's been some modicum of testing. But that proof should include things like methodology and really detail what was done. Make sure that it's not just some distant cousin who basically ran a network tool and called it a day. You really want to understand what went on. Further, for the really small SMBs that can't afford testing of their own, one of the things that's good to understand is, will my vendor allow me to test for two reasons? One, you might not always be an SMB, and you may have this contract for quite some time. So as you grow, you might have the ability to test down the line, so that's important. But also, if they will not allow you to test, chances are they won't allow any of their customers to test. And that means that they're probably not well vetted. So a company that allows you to test has probably at least been tested by others. Now, I wouldn't count on that from a security perspective, but it's certainly a good sign.
Obviously, you want to make sure the pros are handling all the testing. Now, there's breaches taking place all over the world. It seems to be making major headlines. Do you think this is creating awareness for these business owners, or do you feel as though they're starting to catch on and realizing that their data is so important, and are they paying attention to these things?
I think they are. I think we as a community, both the security community and sort of the global economy, the modern economy, have really advanced from, say, 1998, where a breach was just something, a defacement of a website, to today understanding the impact of a breach, understanding the moral requirements of taking in data, understanding that you have an obligation to your customers, your partners, and all of these people to take good care of the data that you personally take in. So I think that is improving drastically. I think a lot of that also has to do with the press. When the press covers a breach and says these specific records were breached, or there was 100,000 consumer records breached in a breach of company XYZ, I think that drives other companies to take seriously their moral obligation when they take in data. And certainly, no one wants to be a headline in that capacity.
Charles Henderson, Director of SpiderLabs at Trustwave, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.